So I guess as long as I'm talking about sin, let's look at what exactly we're talking about. What is sin? Do we understand even how the Bible defines it? I mean, Christians strive to avoid sin, but there's a lot of people who strive to avoid God because they have sense enough to know there's no way you can avoid sin, which they believe is necessary once you believe in God. Yet the scriptures themselves tell us all sin and fall short of the glory of God. Kind of interesting, right? Well, to sin means to transgress or step across the line or go beyond a certain boundary. In sports, for instance, football, which I know very little about, but I do know there are limits on the playing field. And when a player crosses the lines of boundaries, there's a penalty. Well, see, so it's really not such a big deal when you understand it, right? Okay, I mean, no one really complains about boundary lines in football, whether somebody crosses them or not. It gives you something to scream and yell about when the opposing team crosses them, of course. But, you know, there are boundary lines in football, baseball, soccer ball, hockey, you name it. We expect to have boundaries in these sports. So we know when a line is crossed, when a rule is violated. Well, sin in the Bible involves a second concept similar to it. It's called to miss the mark. And another sports analogy is soccer. If a player aims for a goal, kicks the ball, misses, he gets no points because he missed the goal or missed the mark. Well, if this is true, why then do we hate the idea that God set boundaries on our behavior? I mean, come on. And why do so many people go out of their way to defy God's boundaries that He set, that are there for our own good? I mean, just the same way in sports. These boundaries are there for a reason. You know, if everybody was out there on the football, soccer field going whichever way they wanted, whichever goal, and they'd get to whatever goal and say, oh, I just won that goal. And people say, well, wait a minute, wasn't that their goal? Dump that in? But you get the idea. Chaos would reign. So, you know, sin then is transgressing God's spiritual laws. You know, He defined the boundaries by which we are to live. These are minimum standards. The playing field on which we live our lives. So, Jesus narrowed sin from the 10 Commandments, violating them, down to 2 simple commandments. Love God and love each other. Sin violates the law of God. If you truly love someone, and Jesus said love even your enemies, and that's a whole nother subject, but anyway, nonetheless, if we really love one another, enemies and all, we're, you know, like 1 Corinthians says, we're patient and kind, always there for them, and yada yada. We speak the truth in love. Well, of course, how do we avoid sin? Is it even possible? No. Loving our enemies? You got to be kidding. We can't become a Christian and expect to be perfect. Although, when I first started out at the age of 49 or 50, and I'm 75 now, I did really well. I quit swearing and saw everybody as wonderful, but over time I fell back into some of my old nasty, sinful habits. Because it was really impossible to uphold that standard for any length of time, I began crossing the line again. I missed the mark big time some days. There's no way I love my enemies all the time, not even my friends, for pity's sakes. I wish that weren't true, but it is. So what's the point of it all? If we play the game of life and miss the boundary line, so what? Well, it's because of Jesus we can do it. He played the final, ultimate game for us. And He won for everyone. And in so doing, we're forgiven all our sins. Not just me, not just the preacher at the big fancy church or the poor church, but everybody. As long as you choose to believe in Jesus. It's not about suddenly becoming this perfect person or even going to church every Sunday and acting perfect. It's just about having a heart for God, following Him, and doing the very best you can. We still cannot deliberately choose to violate the boundaries on a consistent basis, thinking, well, I'm a Christian, so it's all good. God's got me forgiven. Yeah, I don't think that's going to cut it. Jesus said there's some who pretend to be Christians or profess to be Christians, same as pretending, but they don't act like they are. They do whatever they want whenever they want. He says those people are going to get into heaven as easy as the non-believers are. It ain't going to happen. Okay. So now there's going to be times in the heat of the moment as we're running for the finish line. We get excited, we slip up, we swear, we flip somebody off as we're zooming down the freeway and we get all caught up. The idea is that we say, oh God, I did it again. Lord, I'm so sorry. Help me not to do this again. And God willing, we improve on that behavior the more we're aware of it and the more we consistently improve on it. That's the idea. So if we slip up and cross a boundary or miss the mark, we're forgiven. Just pick up the ball and carry on. Don't stop the game and give up. Okay, there you have it. That's my little synopsis on sin and what it's all about.